there's the big debate last year, and I was part of it when it comes to Alexander Ovechkin, that he probably was not going to reach Wayne Gretzky's record. He has the all-time goals record for a career regular season, 894 goals. Then Ovechkin, who just turned 39 this September, he was 38, was really slumping out of the gates. Didn't play well. He scored 8 goals in his first 40 games last year, including a 14-game goal drought, which was the longest of his NHL career. Then he scored against the Dallas Stars. In Dallas, I remember it because I was watching him in the morning skate. I watched him in that game, and I remember thinking, I don't think he's going to get it. I think the age is starting to catch up to him. He's just not what he was before. I remember him being an absolute freight train out on the ice, skating up and down all over the place. He would hit guys. He was terrifying. Every time Ovechkin hit the ice, you were aware of it. In this game, which was January 27th of this year, I didn't see it. But then he scored. And guess what he did? He scored the next 6 straight games, including that game against Dallas. And he finished with 23 goals over his final 39 games of the year. And he didn't hit 40 goals. He only had 31. But he went from looking like he may not get 15 goals last year to getting over 30. So the question to you guys, I got lots of numbers. I looked things up. Do you think Alex Ovechkin can break Wayne Gretzky's record? And will he in the next 2 years, because he has 2 more years left on his contract?
Well,
John doesn't think so.
He actually, going back to what you were talking about, I thought he looked out of shape. And it was maybe father time, whatever, but it looked like he was out of shape, slowing down. And then all of a sudden, not the game that you're speaking of, but the last part of the year when you got to see him play, he just looked like a different guy. Yes, I think he's going to break the record. 2 years ago, even 3 years ago, when they started talking about it, I was like, no way, not a chance is this going to happen. But he's not going to do it this year, I don't think. And again, like you mentioned, he had 23 goals in the last 30-some games. I can see him getting close to that mark, to the 25 to 30 goal mark, maybe this year. And then I think it's next year, probably next year before Christmas that he does. But I was in the other camp for a long time, and then when you start getting that close to it, and I had a chance when Gretz was here, and he's a very upfront and genuine kind of guy, and I just said, that record, what do you think? He goes, oh, he's going to do it. And when Wayne Gretzky says something, you probably ought to believe him, but you could tell he almost wanted him to break it. I left that and I'm like, I think he actually wants him to do it. But that's who Wayne Gretzky is. If you ever have a chance to be around the dude, he's just, everything is sunny and rosy, and and he wants everybody to do well. He wants everybody else to be in the record book more than he is, which will never happen. But the point is, I do believe he's going to do it now, but it'll take him a year and a half.
I think he does it 100%. But with a 2-part answer, I think that if the Capitals are to be anywhere near a playoff team, he needs to break that record this year. What is he, 42 from breaking
he
it?
needs
41
to tie and 42 to break it.
Yeah, so
remember, he scored 42 goals in the 22-23 season 2 years ago.
Yep.
So it's not as if he hasn't done it since he was 34, 35.
He's capable, but I don't think that team's going to be very good, so he's not going to have a ton of help. But that's my first answer. If they want to be in, he needs to do it. The second one is looking at last year. You mentioned that January 27th, he was actually 4th in the NHL after that point with 22 goals in 32 games. After
think
that
about
January.
that. He had been on an 8-game goal drought, which was his second longest of the season at that point. The 14 was his career long earlier that year. And Luddy's absolutely right. He said, he goes, he looked like he was out of shape. I thought so too, whether it's out of shape or just age. But then it's almost as if the dam broke, the monkey off the back with that goal against the Stars, because then he ripped off goals in 5 more games after that. He had a couple 2-goal games later. I guess to me, I think he's capable of doing it this year, but to me, he seems like he's the anchor negatively that is pulling the Capitals the other direction.
That's why I want to ask you guys this question. What Sam just said. He said if the Capitals are going to make the playoffs this year, he's going to have to break that record. Do you think he cares about making the playoffs? Is that first and foremost to him? Or do you think it's the record?
It's a tough one because
Yeah.
I
It's
mean,
hard to know. I mean, it's
I
hard
mean,
getting
how
He's
many-
so competitive.
he
What
has
don't you
won.
think it's number one for him to break the record? It's not really number
Might,
one.
maybe for the team.
No.
Yeah.
I think for Ovi it probably is now because he's accomplished everything else, right? He's scored all the goals. He's won a Stanley Cup, so that he isn't chasing that.
And his contract, he's got 2 years,
2 years
including
left.
this
He's
year,
probably
right?
a little
This year and
realistic
next.
about where
So
the
isn't
team
the
is.
timing kind of
He's also
Here,
making
there, see you later. Yeah, I'm
9.5
going to
million
Russia.
against the cap, which is a lot of money. But that's also the kind of money you expect a
Woods
guy
is
to
deporting him again.
literally
Woods is
contribute
deporting
in a
him again.
major way. And I'm not sure, Sean, do you think for as much talent as he has, is he still a guy that's valued as carrying that offense? I don't think he is.
To me, so to answer the question is yes and yes. I think he will get there. And to follow up on Lud's point, I think one of the cool things we will see from Wayne Gretzky once it happens. So once he's probably within 3 goals of the record. One of the things Gordie Howe did when Wayne broke his record was Gordie Howe basically made sure he was there for when the record was broken. It was a very classy move of Gordie Howe to be there. I wanted to be there to witness Wayne Gretzky's record. And I know Wayne has talked about when Ovechkin is kind of in that spot, he will make sure that he's doing kind of the right thing for the game to be there. So that'll be kind of cool. I don't think we will see Wayne Gretzky attending every Capitals game until next season. I think next season is when it happens. For me, the most interesting thing about Ovechkin last year, it's not the goal total. It's the amount of shots that are not getting through. And that's the spot where I kind of look at him. So last year he played 79 games. He had 272 shots on that. 2 years prior, in the 2 prior full seasons, he had 294, 334. This is a guy who, when he was 30 years old, was taking 400 shots on net a year. He actually had more shot attempts last year than he did in years he had 300 plus shots. Like, he's just become a more predictable player.
Yeah.
And that's the spot. And that's the thing about Ovechkin. Like and you ask about him being kind of the linchpin of an offense. I mean, one of the things that's incredible to me about Ovechkin's career, and first is the positive. Let's talk about the positive. He's gone from this dynamic force, one of the greatest on the rush power forwards we've ever seen. That's what he was at his peak. But you can only do that for so long, right? So he did that into his early 30s. Then, and he always had that I'm waiting by the bus on the power play shot on the power play. That was always part of his game. Then he somehow turned that into the centerpiece of everything. So when he breaks this goals record, that will be one of the most impressive things. He did it in multiple ways because he did adapt in that way. But he has now reached the part, in my view, where whether it's the game's caught up, whether it's he's gotten slower, whatever you want to call it, Ovechkin is just much more predictable of a player. Not as many shots get through. He's going to get there because he's probably going to get about 30 power play goals over the next 2 years. He's going to get the space on that alone. So he only needs about a dozen even strength goals, and if 4 of them are empty netters, you only need 8 even strength goals. So that's going to happen. But can the Capitals compete if they are focused on pushing the puck for him to get goals? And I don't think that's the case because
Distractions.
I was just going to say that.
And to Lud's point on this isn't just an Ovechkin thing. The owner there, or am I drawing a complete blank on his name? Right? Owner of the Washington, Ted Leonsis. He is the biggest Ovechkin supporter you will find. He has talked like for him, Ovechkin breaking the goals record will be a Capitals team achievement for the way Leonis looks at his business. When you think about it that way, that is when you know that this is going to be something that everything's going to be built around. I mean, for the Capitals, from a ticket sales interest perspective, one of the best things to happen for them this year, Ovechkin goes and gets like 30-something goals this year. So then he's only got like 14, 15, and then you can sell the Ovechkin goal chase. The next year becomes all about the Ovechkin goal chase, and you can push all that. Like, that's the best case scenario for the Capitals. And that's the best case. And I bet that's what Leonis would love to see happen. So I know people like to say, oh, the main goal is to win and get into the playoffs. And yes, that is going to be a goal for most of the people on the team. But a lot of that organization, having Alex Ovechkin above Wayne Gretzky's name on the goal record is going to be a huge Capitals team achievement, right or wrong.
You guys are wizards on your computers. Can you pull up how many empty net goals Wayne Gretzky has had in his career and what Ovi's had in his career?
I can.
I'm just curious. It's even close.
Yeah.
It seemed like Ovi would have more, but I don't know.
So Gretzky had 56.
Sean's even faster because he
And,
already had his at his
Yeah,
keyboard.
because Ovechkin beat that record last year. Because Ovechkin scored his 57th last year to
So they're
beat
about the
Gretzky's.
same page.
About the same.
Okay.
Yeah,
But keep in mind
Yeah,
that's about the
yeah.
same, and that's 42 more or whatever that Sean said will be 4 or 5.
yeah.
But yeah, I think it's interesting too, Sean. The Capitals they're not sacrificing being a playoff team or a good contender for this record. Let's be straight about that. They weren't really a playoff team last year. They just got in at minus 25 or whatever. And I think they're not going to be much better this year. So yes, that makes a lot of sense, but they're also not. It's not like they're like, you know what, we could win a cup this year, but let's just focus on Alexander Ovechkin and really try to get the record.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're saying that. I just mean it's important to note that they understand realistically where their franchise is, and they know they have the option to buy in. They have him 2 more years of this contract. Why not buy in, get this record, celebrate it like you just mentioned, and make it a huge deal? But it will be interesting because, like Sean said, he looked bad at times last year, and I think it's because of what you mentioned. Some of his shots just so easily blocked or so easily poked away that normally would do that, and it's because he's just not creating as much free space.
The Ovechkin record Sean was referencing, 57 for Ovi, 56 for Gretzky. Third place is Marian Hossa with 40 empty net goals.
Wow.
So there's a
It
huge
just-
gap between 1, 2, and 3.
It's for me. It's just, again, I talk about distractions all the time, and the focus will be on Ovi. And again, he's going to spend 1:57 on the power play, and every time they are going to have him out there at the end of the game and for the empty netter. What does Ardell got to
We
say?
got a super chat. $8.08, which is all about Ovechkin today. Ardell says, I wouldn't bet against Ovechkin breaking the record this year. Dude is hockey Thanos. Inevitable. Acknowledge him, Luds.
Ardell, I'm going to give you your $8 and what is that? 8 cents or 88 cents? Cheapskate, 808. I'll give you that $8.08 back if he breaks the record.
There you
This
go.
year. This
He
year.
acknowledged Ardell
Done.
more than Ovechkin.